Good afternoon. Welcome to the March 19th meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Birmingham. Please stand as I invite Ann Laura Cook to the podium to offer the invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Scott. All right, today I would like to share with you a reflection from one of my favorite theologians, Henry Nouwen. So if you'll bow your heads. Solitude is not a solution, it is a direction. The direction is pointed to by the prophet Elijah, who did not find Yahweh in the mighty wind, the earthquake, the fire, but in the still small voice. This direction, too, is indicated by Jesus, who chose solitude as the place to be with his Father. Every time we enter into solitude, we withdraw from our windy, earthquaking, fiery lives and open ourselves to the great encounter. The first thing we often discover in solitude is our own restlessness, our drivenness and compulsiveness, our urge to act quickly, to make an impact, to have influence. And often we find it very hard to withstand the temptation to return as quickly as possible to the world of relevance. But when we persevere with the help of a gentle discipline, we slowly come to hear the still small voice and to feel the gentle breeze, and so come to know the Lord of our heart, soul, and mind, the Lord who makes us see who we really are. May we all have the discipline to create space in our busy lives that allows us to hear that still small voice that seeks to guide us. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Laura, thank you. Let's see, great invitation. I think you joined the club like February 12th or something last month. Been to every meeting since then and already involved in the Youth Year Committee, so thank you. Glad you're here. All right, I'd now like to invite the esteemed J.W. Carpenter to the podium for announcements and introduction of guests. J.W.
Hello. They've given me a script this week, so I think it's official. They are reining me in. It took 6 months, and quite frankly, I thought it was going to happen sooner. All right, so our club is working to provide relief for families and children in Lee County suffering from the recent tornadoes. When you make a donation through the link on the screen, and you have permission to get your phone out right now to do this, the club's going to match your gift dollar for dollar. I think we've got about $2,000 so far, so we got 8 to go, and we have voted today as a board to just waste the money if we don't give it to these great folks. So if you would rather this money go to the families badly in need Lee County, please donate. It's a great opportunity for the match, so please give today. Whatever you can would be terrific. Okay, spring break special for Kiwanis members. Bring your family to visit Vulcan Park Museum at no charge during spring break, March 22nd to the 31st. Just bring a copy of the postcard to the ticket agent for free admission for you and your family. Also, Vulcan Spring Tours on March 23rd and 24th. Join area historians on a tour of the Kiwanis Vulcan Trail. Built on the roadbed of the Mineral Railroad, the trail reveals the natural beauty of Red Mountain and the story of its industrial past. A part of Vulcan and Parks Museum's Spring Walking Tour Series, advanced online registration and payment is required. Jimmy Hill Mission 75th anniversary. Tony Cooper is the executive director of Jimmy Hill Mission and a Kiwanian. Just wanted to share this major milestone. Anyone who's ever worked with Jimmy Hill knows what a phenomenal organization it is. Since its beginning in 1944, hardly the easiest year in the world to start a nonprofit. It's grown beyond being just a homeless shelter for men. Now it offers a shelter for women and children, after-school Bible clubs, recovery programs, learning centers, and fundraising thrift stores. Congratulations to Tony and this wonderful organization. We have plenty of guests today, and before I get to that, there is a very special person who I know brings me joy every single time I'm here, and I know I'm not the only one, whose birthday it is. So I want to, birthday was yesterday, and I want to wish a happy birthday, and I'm going to get everybody to sing, happy birthday, Bernadine. just joy, and I would like a joyful rendition of Happy Birthday, and we're going to start right now. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bernadine. Happy birthday to you. All the Kiwanians who will be there tomorrow at Boutwell for 7th grade Shark Tank. It's going to be a ton of fun. Appreciate all of our slots are filled. Thank you to all of those who stepped up. We are not going to introduce the over 50 guests today by name, but if you are a guest or you are a host of a guest, please stand up so we may acknowledge you. Welcome to Kiwanis. I now turn the ceremony back to Scott Adams.
We could try. Thanks, JD. Yeah, I guess that script thing didn't work very well. Anyway, I swear, we did not write those things. Anyway, really big welcome to all our guests here today. It's awesome to see such a big crowd. And thanks to all our Kiwanians for bringing this wonderful talent here today. I know you will not be disappointed by this talk from Sallie and Chuck Holmes and so a fireside chat. A big special thanks to Whitney Wright for securing and sharing Sallie with us today. So thank you. Also, just as JW mentioned too, tornado relief, again, the news cycle may have passed, but the needs are still there in Lee County, so please consider doing. And finally, very excited to announce our annual Birmingham Business Hall of Fame inductees for this year. We've got a video we're going to run to announce this year's class. Let's roll it.
For more than 20 years, the Birmingham Business Hall of Fame has honored individuals who have shaped the Magic City, its economy, and the community. In August, 5 more individuals will join the icons, innovators, and trailblazers in the Birmingham Business Hall of Fame, which was founded by the Kiwanis Club in 1997 to recognize individuals who have changed Birmingham for the better. Today, the Kiwanis Club Business Hall of Fame Committee is proud to unveil its 2019 class of inductees. And here they are. Jesse Lewis, Agency 54. John McMahon, LIGON Industries. Kate Nielsen, Community Foundation of Greater Birmingham. Charles Shalacy and J.B. Shalacy, Supreme Beverage Company. Congratulations to all of this year's honorees. On Thursday, August 22nd, the Kiwanis Club of Birmingham will host the 2019 Birmingham Business Hall of Fame induction ceremony at the Harbert Center. The event will feature an evening of networking, cocktails, a plated dinner, and a celebration of 5 individuals who left their mark on Birmingham and will take their well-deserved places in the Hall of Fame. For more information on the event, go to kcob.org. Tickets and corporate tables are available to support this year's honorees.
Great lineup, and thanks to Lee Davis and Terry Smiley, co-chair of that committee, as well as all those committee members for those wonderful selections. All right, now on to the program. All right, I'm pleased to call to the podium Whitney Wright, co-founder of the Athena Collective and director of investor relations, Cook and Bynum Capital, Kiwanian since 2018, and Whitney has the honor of introducing our guest speaker as well as the moderator. Whitney.
Thank you, Scott. I do have the honor of introducing the speaker and moderator, so I'm going to get right to it. So Chuck Holmes. Chuck is a fellow Kiwanian and made his way to Birmingham in 2017 to lead public radio WBHM as executive director. Since Chuck started WBHM, which is a nonprofit, has garnered national attention because Chuck and his team have brought programs like NPR's Code Switch to Birmingham, as well as StoryCorps. He is a veteran journalist who worked at NPR in Washington, D.C., where he managed the network's daily news operation. He was also the managing editor of Morning Edition, one of NPR's most popular shows. And his career is long and impressive. He was also the foreign editor of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and he's worked as a foreign correspondent posted in both Jerusalem and Moscow. At NPR, he shared an Edward R. Murrow Award for Afghanistan coverage and a Peabody Award in 2013 for the Race Card Project. Please welcome Chuck Holmes. And I'm very excited to introduce to you Sallie Krawcheck. Sallie is a fellow Southerner. She is a native of Charleston, South Carolina. She earned a journalism degree from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and an MBA with honors from Columbia University. Sallie started her career as a stock analyst for Sanford Bernstein, and through her integrity, work ethic, talent, and really fervent commitment to consumers, that all contributed to her rise on Wall Street. She was the CEO of Smith Barney, the CEO of Merrill Lynch Wealth Management, the CEO of Citi Wealth Management, and also the CFO of Citigroup. She is now the CEO of a startup called Ellevest, which is a mission-driven platform dedicated to help women invest. We are really excited to have her here. She's the mother of 2 kids. She also has 2 cats. She lives in New York City. Please help me in welcoming Sallie Krawcheck.
Sallie, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Birmingham. Your resume, when Whitney's reading your accomplishments, is astounding, and I'm so excited to have the chance to be able to kind of talk to you about your life and career. Native of Charleston, from the South. What I didn't hear in the introduction was before you got into Wall Street. Well, did you have an aha moment that you went into finance, investment? What was the path like from, because I know you studied journalism in college.
That's right.
Good choice not going into journalism.
That's right.
But what was the impetus that led you into finance?
Well, I like to say when I was a little girl growing up in the 70s and then into the 80s in Charleston, South Carolina, my first choice was to be a princess. And when that didn't work out, I decided to be a self-identity research analyst. But, you know, look, it was when I graduated from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill in the late 80s. If you wanted a big job, today young people go out to Silicon Valley. At the time, you went to Wall Street. And so, you know, the added further impetus to that was that my father, Charlestonian lawyer, forbid me from moving to New York because he said it was too dangerous. And so then I was only going to New York. And I wanted to get there. And I remember calling him up and saying, you know, I got an offer to work, I think at the Miami Herald, for $12,000. And I got offers to work at Salomon Brothers and Goldman and JP Morgan for $31,000. And I thought, well, this is a pretty obvious choice. I called my dad and I said, which should I accept? Goldman? Should I accept Salomon Brothers? Should I accept JP Morgan? And he said, well, definitely not Goldman. And I said, great advice, but why? And he said, well, I've never heard of them before. And with that, somehow ended up, if you could have picked the most Wall Street of the Wall Street firms at the time, screaming, yelling, cigar smoking obscenities, that was Salomon Brothers. And I will never forget showing up there in what I thought was my Charleston finery on my first day, and walking in and thinking, we're just not in South Carolina anymore. Actively, you know, the guys actively tried to get the gals out of there by putting obscene pictures on my desk day after day. And so it was really the Wild West for a lot of years. And one, they weren't going to run me out, and 2, I couldn't afford to be run out because I had a 12-month lease I had to pay. Right. And so even though I got there and thought, I don't think I want to do this, I really didn't have a choice at the time.
Right. Well, I mean, clearly had the right stuff. You went on to Sanford Bernstein, started as an equity analyst there, and in fairly short order, you worked your way up to CEO. Less than a decade, if I'm right? Yeah?
Oh, less than that.
Yeah. What was the impetus? Clearly ambitious.
Right.
You obviously were able to put all the shenanigans aside and concentrate on the work.
Well, I found a great firm. It's funny you say clearly ambitious. I remember the time that for a female, that was actually a bad word. That was viewed as being unladylike, but I was ambitious. And it sort of was fun for me, how I'm in this strange world that my family isn't part of, how far can I go? And I was fortunate enough, I didn't want to be an investment banker. I took a career break. I had a baby. I was a stay-at-home mom for a period of time. And went to go, had the insight, I want to be a sell-side research analyst, interviewed with all the Wall Street firms. And Merrill rejected me, and Goldman rejected me, and Prudential rejected me, and Nomura rejected me, and Lehman Brothers, and Shearson, and Dillon Reed, and I mean, everybody rejected me. My favorite is the director of research at Smith Barney rejected me. I was saying earlier today, his reasoning for rejecting me was he sort of took one look. You know, he's like, you're not going to work very hard. And as you know, I have a lot of faults, but not working hard is not one of them, which I later told him when he worked for me and I fired him. So that, yeah, it was a nice moment. Or, you know what. But I ended up finding a job, and this was really, I think, almost the beginning of my recognition that diversity is powerful. Because the only place that would give me a job was Sanford Bernstein, which I used to call us the land of the misfit toys. We were everyone on Wall Street who had not gone to an Ivy League school, who could not get the job at the white shoe firms. And really, you know, just research was it for us, and the intellectual challenge of getting a research call right was it for us. And so the reason I was successful quickly is because I never sort of got the memo from the rest of Wall Street in the 1990s when you were supposed to be positive and bullish no matter what. And some of you may remember that, when the Jack Rubbins and the Henry Blodgetts put out the ridiculously high target prices. And we at Bernstein, I was like, I don't get that. You know, and in fact was negative, and was one of the very few research analysts on Wall Street who was negative, and was one of the very few who was right. And so it was a result of standing out, being right, and frankly, a little bit of being a woman. I mean, you couldn't, you know, we talk so much about, was it difficult to be a woman in a man's world? There were days it was, but you couldn't forget me, right? If you know, that analyst amongst 20 others, that female with the Polish name, oh, it's Sallie Krawcheck, versus that white guy with brown hair. He wears a tie. And sometimes glasses, you're like, dude, you gotta narrow this down for me. And so in that point, standing out really helped, and so I became #1 analyst pretty quickly.
Yeah, not only #1 analyst, but I think in the mark of institutions like Wall Street that are covered very closely by the media, you gained some nicknames.
I did.
The Queen of Clean, because of your impeccable nature of your research. And Fortune magazine dubbed you the last honest analyst. Tell us about that experience. I'm sure the other analysts really appreciated you being named the last honest analyst.
That was surreal. So I was on the cover of Fortune magazine. The surreal part about it is the picture was actually bigger than my actual face. And I know that because, of course, I took the magazine and put it up to my actual face. I was like, that's a very large face of me. But the reason I made it on the cover of Fortune magazine is, having been successful as an analyst, I was appointed to Director of Research. At the time, again, I'll cast you back to the late 1990s, early 2000s, research analysts at all the big firms were not only charged with giving you advice, individual investors, in which you would want to buy a stock low, but they also, at the same time, were advising corporations who might want to or would want to sell their stock, perhaps an IPO high. Right? Well, I got one client, got to tell them to buy low. I got the other client, tell them to sell high. Who's my client? And I went in there, and having worked on the Goldman Sachs IPO, I said, you know, when you have all this money you can make from corporations for being bullish, all of a sudden I'm not thinking about the little guy anymore. I'm thinking about all this money. And I took Sanford Bernstein out of the investment banking and underwriting business. We gave up millions of dollars. And I remember the director of research at Goldman having lunch with me and saying, y'all are going to go out of business. And we almost did. Because without having the investment banking revenue, we couldn't afford to pay our research analysts as much, and so they started going to other firms. And we were down at one point to like 12 research analysts. I thought, you have to crash this plane right in the ground. And then the NASDAQ bubble burst, and then Elliot Spitzer came in and found the emails, because we all know emails never die, and found that the Jack Grubmans were on the one hand saying buy this stock, and in the email writing this stock is a piece of crud. And every big firm on Wall Street had those conflicts except for us. And so our business did that. I was called the last honest analyst. It was really the beginning of the first sort of series of Wall Street scandals that have occurred.
And let's talk about that a little bit in terms of that sort of truth-seeking that you were doing then and the culture that existed then versus now. 2000, the Great Recession happened, Lehman Brothers. Should we be optimistic? Have things changed on Wall Street?
No, not that much. There is less financial leverage on Wall Street. Lehman Brothers had, $80 of debt for every $1 of equity. So you didn't take a very big loss for the company to be out of business. Today it's not 80, but it's 12 or 10. We can imagine a scenario in which the Wall Street firm's balance sheet declined, shrunk by 10%, and they were out of business. So in that way, it's gotten better. Is it good enough? Not clear yet. We haven't been through a crisis to test it. In another way, it's gotten worse. And in the way that really matters to me is diversity. Now look, if I'd been here 10 years ago and you would have said, Sallie, are you a feminist? Or, no, not me. No. That's a very strident woman. That is not me. Well, I'm a raging feminist at this stage. And by the way, so are all of you. Because whatever we think when the word feminist comes into our head, what the word feminist actually means is that women have the same opportunities, economic, social opportunities that men do. Something I think we could all rally around, right? I first became truly aware of the importance of diversity and the drive toward feminism from being on Wall Street. And we talk a lot about the reasons for the financial crisis, and I hit on leverage, that was super important. I hit on, we can hit on greed. But one we never talk about is something that I saw having been at the leadership tables of Citigroup, which essentially went bankrupt, Bank of America, which essentially went bankrupt. A cause of the crisis that I saw was groupthink. That actually it was a bunch of smart people who all just thought the same. And the reason they thought the same is because they went to the same universities, and their kids went to the same kindergartens, and they traded on the same trading desks, and their spouses, were in the same clubs together, and they vacationed together, and they had the same experiences. In fact, Citi was essentially run by the Salomon Brothers trading class of 1986, right? And I remember being in those meetings, and the gentlemen would finish each other's sentences. And so what I saw was not evil, greedy people. What I saw were individuals who, when the you-know-what was flying, were not fully considering all of the options. We're not really thinking fully through the problem because there wasn't the diversity of thought, the cognitive diversity to say, wait a minute, here was an experience in Asia that we should think about. I was actually just with a woman who I worked with at Citi who ran the consumer business, and I will never forget her saying to the head of the trading desk, tell me why a CDO squared is good for the client, right? And we lost that diversity. Wall Street was of one kind, as opposed to being diverse, right? And that, I think, is a reason for the crisis. And sadly, diversity on Wall Street in the investing industry has gone backwards. What was a very male Caucasian business is today maler and more Caucasian. And one way to test this, by the way, and I think I talk a lot about gender diversity, do any of us really think that had these firms been more diverse, had the trading floors that are 90% men, had they been 50% women, does anyone really think the financial crisis would have been worse? It wouldn't have been. Yeah. It just wouldn't have been, because that diversity, that risk awareness that women tend to bring could have been an offset.
And I want to talk about more about that.
Me too.
Specific point. Some quick numbers that I pulled up, because I knew we would be getting into this area. Women account for fewer than 17% of senior leaders in U.S. investment banking, and fewer than 10% of all U.S. fund managers are women
Yes.
today. What is going to change this?
Nothing. Except people like me starting businesses to attract women into the industry. So let's back up because it's worse than this, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned 10% of mutual fund managers are women, 90% are men. 90% of traders are men, 95% of hedge fund managers are men. But here's the thing, the research tells us that women are as good or better money managers than men. There's a reason for it. We tend to trade less. So we tend to pay less in fees. And yet Wall Street has done such a great job of branding itself that if I were to say to you, name a meritocracy, right? Cream rises to the top, the best and the brightest, a lot of folks would say Wall Street. And we tend to just think, a meritocracy, let the best go. But yet here we have an industry that is overwhelmingly of one type, that, by the way, caused our economy to come to its knees, and yet societal factors are such that diversity has gone backwards over the past 10 or 15 years. So what's going to change? Nothing they're doing now. This whole is a pipeline issue. It wasn't a pipeline issue when I started in 1987. A third of my class were women, right? It's not the fact, women come in at a pretty good rate, they just don't get promoted. They don't leave for flexibility or have babies, they just don't get promoted, the research tells us. The thing that can change it is a decision being made at the top that diversity matters. Or by people like me going out and starting our own firms and building, different businesses. But let me, one other example to maybe make you care about this, right? If the financial crisis wasn't enough, who do you think earned more money in the 10 years from 1997 to 2008? Merrill Lynch or my quirky firm that I started in Sanford Bernstein? Who earned more money over that 10-year period? The answer is Sanford Bernstein. And the reason Sanford Bernstein earned more money is not because it earned more money in the 9 years, it's because it didn't lose 50 quarters worth of earnings in the out year. And the major difference between these two companies is that Merrill was non-diverse, did not take into account the risk, and Sanford Bernstein was full-on diversity and was more effective in seeing what was coming.
Gotcha. In terms of the culture of Wall Street or any business these days, #MeToo, it certainly made an impact in a very painful way. But what's the long-term impact of the MeToo movement, and is that a catalyst for changing some of the numbers?
I think it's very interesting. Steve Bannon has said that he believes that Time's Up and Me Too, these movements, could be the most powerful political movements in U.S. history. Now, I don't know if this is going to be the case or not. It feels like we may be losing a little bit of the momentum. But I do think it's very healthy to have, while Les Moonves that and Charlie Rose this and Matt Lauer, I let you in my house for breakfast and you were doing what with a button under the desk and nobody noticed, right? And Harvey Weinstein and, it's hard to even think through what are all of the implications of this. One is that Les Moonves, was vetoing TV shows that had strong women in them. And so we, we're watching more of a diet that continued with males and females in more traditional roles, right? Another thing, forget what you think about politics, but go back at some point and look at Matt Lauer interview Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton one after the other on some boat, some ship, whatever it was. And the way he treats each of them differently is jaw-dropping. Right? He is pounding Clinton, and he is letting Trump roll on by. And if you think the button under the desk and his view of women and the way he interviewed her are unrelated, they're not. They're just not. And so really in media, these misogynists were feeding us a steady diet of something that, you know, reflected maybe a world that we wish had gone by, or not the modern world. And so I think the implications of this are really important. By the way, I don't think this would have come out if Hillary Clinton had been elected president, right? I think this was in reaction to it, and I do think it's a healthy first step.
Let's talk about your career a bit more in terms of it's been my experience that successful people get there on their merits and their qualities, but it also takes some luck, and it also takes some mentors. You clearly have succeeded in a male-dominated field. What's been the difference for you?
Well, look, first of all, I do want to make one thing super clear, which is we're talking about diversity. I want to be clear that I'm talking about the inclusion of women and people of color, not the exclusion of men. And I love men. I've been married to a couple of men. I think they're great. And what we tend to do when we talk about this is we tend to have a scarcity mindset, where if we're bringing in other people, that must mean someone else has to go, right? But I think it's really important to note that the biggest growth in our economy, multi-year, multi-decade growth, was when women came into the workforce after World War II. And I think we just get stuck, and particularly because the rhetoric is so angry right now, I think we get stuck in there are only this many seats, there are only that many companies. When in fact, if we, this economy has undergrown its potential for years and years. And if we could get this diversity thing figured out and get more folks into the workforce, we'll solve a lot of problems this country has. Okay.
Yeah.
And I love it. Okay. So, how did I do?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sort of insecure, and so every time I got knocked down, I just wasn't going to leave. I just took it to my mind. First of all, that I had the great good fortune of being born in South Carolina to my parents, who went way into debt to finance our education, all four of us. And sort of owed them the gift of working hard in return for that. I couldn't believe how much fun I was having, that I got to be the CFO of Citi, that I got to meet presidents along the way. Like, what's more cool than this? And every step of the way, I decided I want to have a big career. And so the way to have sort of a small career was to stay in the pack and never take a risk, to be another optimistic analyst with all the other. And I thought, well, that doesn't look like very much fun. Why don't I be the pessimistic one, right? Why don't I be the director of research who gets you out of investment banking? Why don't I be the only executive on Wall Street in the financial crisis who actually returns client money, right? Why don't you try to do something that is a measured risk that can propel your career, and then a lot of luck has to happen, right? That I was running Sanford Bernstein, which was 386 people on a Wednesday, and then Sandy Weil hired me to run Smith Barney, and I was running 40,000 people on a Thursday. You can't plan for that, right? That's some, take some risk, have some wins, have some luck, and then, just sort of ride it.
Right. Let's talk about your current venture, Elevest, and this kind of flows directly into the conversation we were just having. Explain a little bit about what Elevest is and what it's seeking to do.
So you hear about the gender pay gap, and we can debate it, okay? But you hear about it. What you never heard about, what I never heard about until a couple of years ago, was something called the gender investing gap. That women don't invest as much as men do. And this can cost women, it can cost the women in this room, not just hundreds of thousands, but even millions of dollars over the course of our lives. And this sort of dawned on me, having run Merrill Lynch and Smith Barney. I remember one day sort of putting on mascara, wait a minute. This is, ladies, we tend to live longer than men do, 6 to 8 years. 80% of us die single, and we tend to have less money than men do. And so as I was sort of, I almost went into government for a bit, and I was sort of puzzling through this issue of the retirement savings shortfall. I thought, wait a second. The gender pay gap is taking forever to close, but I wonder if there's a way to close this gender investing gap. I backed up. I started to think about the businesses I've been involved in. 86% of financial advisors are men, about the same percent of our clients were men. Where were the women? Why weren't the women investing? At the time, and I think still today, we women receive messages that it's our fault that we're not investing as much. We're risk averse, we're told, which is not true, right? We need more financial education, which is true, but so do the men. So why is it just us who are always being told it? We're told we, need a relationship, we need, and I said, what if instead of it being our fault, we women that were not investing, and what if instead of us needing to change, maybe an industry that is overwhelmingly male does a better job for men than women? Well, maybe that whole investing as a sport thing, CNBC is ESPN for money thing, right? The outperform, the pick a winner, the get more money, maybe that appeals more to men. Maybe the bull, the symbol of Wall Street, maybe that appeals more to men than women. And in fact, I've never had a woman say to me, I love that bull. Right now, my two brands are Tory Burch and the bull. Never happens, right? Maybe we women look at the investing industry and see the guys and don't see ourselves. And so what if instead, in this next phase of my life, we go out and raise some money, and we actually build an investing business completely around women? And so I made a dozen mistakes, right? So many. One of them was, this goes to show, my own blind spots. I thought, well, women, it must be we're emotional about money, we're women. And so we'll have to get through the emotion. And we actually put together a prototype with that, and the women are like, shut up. They're like, no. What we found is women are very practical about money. They're not really particularly interested in outperforming when the euro outperforms the yen. We are very interested in buying a home in 5 years, being able to afford to have a baby, right? Being able to afford to retire and live through our natural life. We also tend to be interested, more than gentlemen are, in impact investing. Can I invest my money and have a positive impact at the same time? Is that possible, right? And so we built the only platform out there that really is about those types of goals, as opposed to buy this mutual fund versus this. It's how much house can you afford when? Okay, here's the investment portfolio that will do it. Technology first, very modern, very sophisticated. We launched it. It was really interesting what happened when we launched it, because we put it out there, Ellevest for women, invest like a woman. And some number of women said, woo, yeah, this is amazing. And about 40% of women said, boo, hiss, you're jerks. And I'm like, what? And what came back, which was fascinating, from these women is, this is sexist. Like, why is building something for women sexist? And as we dug into it, it's because we have been programmed to believe that products historically for women have not been better, they've been worse. Have not been less expensive, they've been more expensive. And so the feedback we got is, this is definitely going to be dumbed down. Not a single woman, not one single woman said it's for women, it must be better. And so we had this really interesting challenge, which first of all, hey, you have an investing gap that's costing you a fortune, we need to close it, education. Hey, here's something for you women that is not stupid. And then now invest in a new way. And we've managed to do all that over the last couple of years to become really the fastest growing of any of the modern digital first investing platforms.
Ted, let me ask a real job interview question.
Yes.
Where do you want it to be 5 years from now? Where do you hope your organization?
It's really all about the mission. Mm-hmm. It is all about helping women invest. Because by the way, anybody here, can you think of anything bad happens when women have more money? Raise your hand high. Give me the answer. What bad thing happens when women have more money? The answer is nothing. Right? Nothing. Their children are better off. The research tells us their daughters tend to have more money or more confident. You've seen the research that says when women build wealth, they put more of it back into their communities. There's debate, is it 90% of their wealth or 95% of their wealth? But it's some amount. The economy grows because they spend it, so more businesses are started. Society tends to moderate because, let's face it, money is power in a capitalist society, and as women begin to have more money, begin to have more power, there's not one of us who thinks that Harvey Weinstein would have been able to get away what he got away with if those actresses had had more money, right? So much of this Me Too happened because women were caught in jobs because they didn't have financial stability. And finally, when women have more money, we give more of our money away to nonprofits, so they benefit. And so we've got so many people working on closing the gender pay gap, and closing the gender board gap, and closing the gender achievement gap. Ellevest is the one that's closing the gender investing gap. And the really exciting thing about it is, it's just not that hard, right? Going to work is hard. Asking your boss for a raise is hard, and they're time consuming. Investing 2%, 5% out of every paycheck, that's not hard, and can really make life-changing amounts of money.
To a man or a woman, if you had one piece of leadership advice to give, what would it be?
Yeah, look, I think it's don't give up. So you have been, and Whitney in the introduction was too kind to share that, a really important fact about me. And I hold a world record, and I think we're now getting to know each other well enough that I can brag about it. I think so, right? Yeah, so I'm the only woman who's been fired on the front page of the Wall Street Journal twice. Like a lot of others have been fired on the front page of the Wall Street Journal one time. That's junior varsity. This is varsity level stuff here, right? And of course it was, I got fired for good reasons. I returned client money, reorg, all that sort of stuff. I feel okay about it. But it was also deeply embarrassing and humiliating. And as I've thought about how I approach my career and how I want my children to approach theirs, you got one of two reactions to being fired on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, right? Which is one of the, top 5 or at least 10 worst days of my life. Reaction number one is like, oh my gosh, honey, do you think anybody read the journal today? To ask Gary to go buy up every issue of it. And the other reaction is, for a gal from Charleston, South Carolina, hot damn front page. Because if you had told me growing up in Charleston, South Carolina, that I would do anything to land on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, right? I would have done backflips down the hall, and keeping that sense of wonder. On top of that, recognizing, and I mean recognizing deeply, that those, as mentioned, were 2 of my top 5 worst days, maybe top 10 worst days of my life, were better than so much of the world's best day. That my children were not going to lose their home, right? They were not going to get pulled out of school. That the good, we're just forgetting it in our country right now. Every one of us lives better than the kings of France did in the 1700s, right? And it's easy to forget that. But recognizing that all of us are playing with house money, in that case, you get fired, you're like, put me back in, coach. Let's go with another round.
Right. Speaking of Charleston,
Yeah.
your sister's here today.
Hey,
right?
Lindsay.
Let's call her out. Hi.
Stand up.
Stand up. I'm going to open it up.
Wait, and my father, and my
And your
first cousin twice removed,
Mike.
Mike Krawcheck. Are you
Mike,
here?
where are you?
There he is.
I'm going to open it up to questions because as tradition holds, your questions are going to be much better than my questions. Anybody have a question for Sallie? Sir.
From your journalism degree at Chapel Hill, you had to develop some technical expertise. Did you have a mentor or was it training from? How did you transition?
So having had a journalism degree at Chapel Hill, how did I get the technical expertise to be successful on Wall Street? It was really interesting. I took one math class at UNC. It was my first semester. It was sort of a three-dimensional thing that was rotating around an axis. And I took that one class and I said, never again. And went to Wall Street almost in a way to try to balance out, because I'd gone so far journalism, English, poli-sci, history. I sort of felt unbalanced. There was a training program, but there was really more just a natural curiosity to it of, boy, if we could solve the problem with math. It was interesting in investment banking. It became really interesting when I became a research analyst, because to me, for any of your kids who are thinking about maybe a career in finance, I highly recommend for young people a research analyst job. And the reason is you have to become in order to be successful, a really good generalist. You have to be able to do the earnings models. You have to be able to write it up. And you have to be able to engage with and spar with intelligent people, right? And so you get sort of that trifecta. And not a lot of people can be successful at those things, but I loved it because once you got tired of doing the earnings model, you were writing it up or you were out there visiting. In fact, in the day, I was remembering I used to come to Birmingham and meet with some of the banks here. It was really fun and a terrific job.
Yes.
Yeah, you may be familiar with Marty Lupton, Lipton, talking about the new paradigm and the focusing not so much on the short term but on the long term. He talks about changing the focus from the shareholder to the stakeholder, and the stakeholder being everybody. And he talks about the real purpose of business is not just to make money, make a profit, but to make a difference.
Here.
Can you talk about that need?
Did you hear the question?
No.
Okay, so for so long there's been, in business it is all about return for the shareholder. And then there's now, you say Marty Lipton, but a number of folks talking about really focusing on the stakeholder. And the stakeholder being the employees, the community, the customers, the clients, as well as the shareholders, and business really becoming mission-driven. And I am wholly in favor of it. I'm wholly against the short-termism of the quarterly earnings cycle, having been a CFO of Citi pre the crash. If you don't think that you've got to report earnings every quarter, hurts a company, you're not thinking correctly. We would stop and start the business. We're down by a penny versus consensus estimates. We need to beat by a penny. We got to find the earnings. We got to stop the investment. And part of the untold story of Citi is it made acquisition after acquisition, and it never consolidated the underlying technology, because it was the easiest thing. That expense was the easiest thing in the world to cut. When you needed a couple pennies for quarterly earnings. And so that quarterly earnings cycle for that company was truly corrosive, and it impacted. In fact, when I became CFO, it took me a week to get the team to figure out what happened if interest rates went up 50 basis points, which I should have been able to do like that, okay? Now, as CFO, I tried to take away our quarterly earnings guidance. I was shellacked for it. My thinking on it is if we don't have the guidance out there, then we earn what we earn. But the institutional investors just shellacked me. Now, I think we are making progress because Larry Fink and Warren Buffett have now spoken about that, so I think we're going to make some progress. Yeah, they're 10 years later than me, but, so be it. I figured I waited long enough. I've been dying to say that. Warren Buffett's 10 years later than me. That really felt very, very, very good. But look, at Ellevest, we're mission first, right? We're all about the impact that we can have on women. That's how we measure our success. And if we do a great job at that, the earnings will follow. As we do a great job at that, we're already seeing the employees are so energized by it. In fact, we were named the #2 most sought after startup in New York City for employees. And when we dig into why is that, it's because these individuals look at this and say, you're trying to make a difference, as opposed to you're trying to just hit the quarterly earnings. So I'm hopeful that more companies will come around to this. It's difficult to turn around a battleship.
Time for maybe 2 more questions.
So
So for business leaders in this room who want to diversify their executive team, what should they do? What can they do tomorrow? Sort of where should
Yeah.
they start?
So for business leaders in the room who want to diversify their executive team, what can they do? Let me be a little controversial, okay? And let me say that whatever it is we're doing now to drive diversity, we just need to just stop doing it. And the reason we need to stop doing it is because it's not working. And the reason we know that is because nothing's working. Because despite all of the books that we read about how to get ahead in business as women or people of color, right, all the talk about it, all the diversity committees, all the conferences, all the Harvard Business Review articles, we've gone sideways to backwards. The gender pay gap for white women is decades away from closing. The gender pay gap for black women is 100 plus years away from closing. And the gender pay gap for Latino women is 200 plus years away from closing. The number of female CEOs has declined this year by 25%. So as we've been talking about it, we've just, not, either been declining or going sideways. To my mind, there are probably 3 solutions. Solution number 1 is the CEO needs to decide to do it, and that's just that. That's just it. No more of the diversity cocktail, hey, let's have Sallie come talk to our women's group. Like the CEO just decides this is enough. And I'm tired of having an executive committee who is all, brought up the same way, thinking the same way. We need to have, I've seen the research about better business results or lower risk. I'm convinced, and I'm just going to force this issue. And we're going to have the Rooney Rule, and every slate is going to have people of difference on them, and we're going to be intentional, and we're going to make this happen. Mark Benioff at Salesforce looked at his company and said, do we have a gender pay gap? The answer was yes. He closed it. Now, when I used to run businesses, I'd be like, ooh, we're giving away profit. But they're gaining business from it. Because if you're a young woman, do you want to work at Salesforce? You want to work at Oracle? You want to work at Salesforce, right? So they're gaining talent and they're gaining customers. So number 1, the CEO decides it and is willing to make not the expense but the investment to close these gaps. Number 2, the other way these things tend to be moving right now is that women or people of difference are banding together and saying enough is enough. We're going to engage with our leadership team, and you know what? Not having a parental leave. Let's talk about putting one in place and the money it can save over the long term by having it. And so there's the engagement, and then the third way is individuals who are saying, I'm going to start my own company. And I'm going to build. The number 1 reason women start companies is to work at the company they want to work at. They will see a culture in a place, and they say, this isn't the mission-driven culture I'm looking for. I'm going to start a company in order to do it. So I think it's those 3 ways.
One more question in the back, and then we'll wrap it up.
Can you share your thoughts on AOC, and number 2, can North Carolina go home?
So obviously North Carolina can go the whole way. Do we have any Duke fans in the room? Could you leave? Oh, so you only beat us because we didn't have Zion, or we didn't have Leaky Black, okay? And you didn't hear us complaining about it. And then essentially the game on Friday was a draw. I mean, 1 point at the buzzer, give me a break. So look, UNC, I don't think Virginia's built for the tournament. I think that slow pace of play. You just get some hot 3-pointers, I think it's over. It sort of feels like it's Gonzaga's time. I know we'll all root against Duke, so I think we got to go for UNC. I think we got to go for UNC. So I feel cautiously sort of okay about it. And isn't March and April the best time of year? And in terms of AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, forget your politics for a second. Maybe the most talented politician we've seen in decades. I mean, this young lady is so sharp and so witty and so social media savvy that she is, barely into Congress and has changed the national debate in a way we haven't seen anybody do since Trump, you know, was running for president, I guess. And nobody has done before that. You know, you may not like what she proposes. You may not like what Elizabeth Warren talks about. But these two individuals are bringing a zip and a freshness, you know, to the debate and discussion that I think is long overdue. And we are, you know, not here really talking about identity politics, which had become so the norm. We're really talking about some very important concepts and ideas. You know, forget again about the Green New Deal and what you think of the details of it. But for us as a nation to be having a serious conversation about this, I think is truly important. And she has thrown the bomb right in. I don't know when the individuals who don't care for her are going to realize that every time they attack her, she beats them down in a way that is brilliant to watch. You know, they should just stop, right? They're feeding exactly into her and getting her more and more attention because she uses Twitter better than anybody, and I think better than Trump as well. So look, this is what you gotta love about our country, right? When our country is at its best, it's messy and argumentative and the ideas and the back and forth. And I think she's bringing a freshness to this that we just haven't seen in a long time. Again, forget the politics, just the debate.
Sallie, thank you so much for spending time with us.
So Chuck, Sallie, thank you. Fantastic, great program. Really appreciate it. Sallie, we're going to make a donation in your name to tornado relief in Lee County, Alabama. So again, thank you for being here. Real quick, upcoming programs next week. This was so good, we're going to take a break next week. Now, spring break, okay? So don't show up next week, but go to Vulcan, visit Vulcan on us. After that, we've got David Walker, EBSCO CEO, will be here. John Turner, CEO of Regions, the week after that. Then April 16th, our Youth of the Year Scholarship Awards Program. Daniel Coleman, the new president of Birmingham Southern, will be here, and quite a distinguished businessman himself. Wednesday, April 24th, the joint meeting. Remember that, Wednesday the 24th, joint with Rotary, the CEO of Target. We will be hearing that day, and then we'll finish April with Dr. Ray Watts of UAB. Thank you for being here. Keep coming back. Bye-bye.